we're trying to stamp all this out because we want kids to go to school in a safe environment.
Texas now has a new law aimed at rooting out bad actors from schools and other places where children learn. And another bill is inching closer to the governor's desk. Investigator Kelly Wiley updates us on the legislation sparked by our reporting. Lawmakers say it attempts to close every loophole in the state's do not hire registries.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed Senate Bill 1437 this week. It'll become law September 1st, allowing the Texas Juvenile Justice Department to designate former employees or volunteers permanently ineligible for certification if they engage in conduct that threatens juvenile safety. Last year, KXAN found records showing that TJJD allowed a former corrections officer, Isaiah Smith, who the agency was investigating for alleged sexual misconduct, to resign and remain eligible for hire weeks after firing him. Records show TJJD's board eventually voted to make Smith ineligible for rehire, but it was more than a year after the settlement and after Smith was arrested and charged for a separate allegation of indecency with a minor. The board's vote also came months after the agency determined he had an inappropriate relationship with a minor at one of its facilities. The agency told us the decision to make him ineligible was not because of his arrest, but because the process to do so was already underway. Our investigation also revealed how Smith was able to get a tutoring job at a public school, all while being investigated by a state agency. It sparked Senator Paul Bettencourt to file Senate Bill 571, a sweeping 72-page bill that he says is an attempt to close every loophole a potential predator might use to gain access to minors in Texas's schools. That bill is set to go to the House floor for a vote next.
Now we're trying to close every loophole we can think of because we simply don't want the trash to be passed from one school to the next, from the public schools to the private schools, and have these sexual predators out here somehow getting access to students.
Senate Bill 571 would authorize TEA to investigate volunteers and third-party service providers like tutors who are accused of certain misconduct. It also reduces the time a superintendent would have to report certain misconduct to the state and increases the penalties for school leaders who don't report suspected misconduct by the required date. The bill, for the most part, has received bipartisan support. More recently, a confidentiality provision was added, and it requires that some records tied to these investigations be held confidential. It has drawn criticism, though, from some folks who say it effectively hides misconduct records from the public. Kelly Wiley, State of Texas.
A bill aimed at improving law enforcement's response to mass shootings is closer to becoming law. Senators passed House Bill 33, also known as the Uvalde Strong Act. It aims to confront response failures during the Robb Elementary School tragedy when a gunman shot and killed 19 children and 2 educators. Students were trapped in their classroom for more than an hour while nearly 400 law enforcement officers waited to confront the shooter. The legislation has several requirements aimed at improving the response to a mass shooting. It requires city, county, and campus police adopt standardized active shooter response policies. School districts and law enforcement would be required to meet annually to plan their active shooter response. The bill also requires officers to complete a training program on how to respond to a school shooting. It's the first bill for Representative Don McLaughlin. He was the mayor of Uvalde at the time of the Robb Elementary shooting. Texas could see an extensive study of its mental health facilities following Senate approval of a measure filed after our investigation. Senator Sarah Eckhart authored Senate Bill 719, saying state hospitals are already overstrained and overcapacity, among other services. These sites treat patients charged with crimes and found incompetent to stand trial. Due to limited space, they are waiting months, even years in some cases, before getting a state hospital bed. Eckhart says there is no official state estimate of future bed needs. The bill now goes to the House in the final days of the session. We've reported extensively on the impact of the wait list, including people dying before reaching trial and families left waiting for justice. Catch up on our coverage by clicking on the mental competency link in this week's State of Texas story on our website. Legislation known as the Botox Party Bill is headed to the governor's desk.
There being 107 ayes, 39 nays, Senate Bill 378 is finally passed.
The Texas House approved the bill to tighten state law over who can administer Botox injections and similar treatments. The push for patient safety comes after our backroom Botox investigation highlighted medical concerns associated with Botox injections. The bill would prevent barbers, cosmetologists, and estheticians from administering Botox and other injectables unless they are licensed or authorized to give the shots. The legislation would also give the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation more disciplinary authority over those professionals.
SB 378 just makes certain that your post-session Botox is done so in a safe manner by a licensed individual.
Georgetown Senator Charles Schwertner authored the bill. He told us he pushed for the measure after hearing about parties taking place where unauthorized injections are administered to friends and family. If signed by the governor, the new law would go into effect on September 1st. A tax cut could be on the way for Texas homeowners, but there's one hurdle left to clear: why a vote in November will have an effect on your property taxes.